good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world, and happy Montgolfier Day. Not many of you will know about that, but today is the 200 and something anniversary of the first ever manned flight, Montgolfier brothers in France. As you know, I've been a balloon driver for nearly, next year will be 30 years, and so today is the day we're all supposed to get very drunk and do all those other good things, but I haven't managed to do that, so I've failed. As a balloonist, I've failed in my duty of getting very drunk today. Anyway, we're joined by Vu from oh no, finger in the way, Phoenix LiDAR System. No, that's not going well
Phoenix
at all.
LiDAR here in
Phoenix,
Los Angeles.
Phoenix LiDAR. I was just covering your logo there, wasn't I, as I was doing it? And Louis, of course. And well, in our show notes, I said, let's argue with Bruce. And what that means is Bruce hasn't turned up. It's outrageous. All you do is say you're going to argue with him. He's chicken. He's chicken. That's what I tell you, chicken.
Yeah. We have some nice arguments to argue with Bruce.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's just, we'll wait and see if he comes along. But before we started, we were talking around LiDAR. And Louis, you were saying, because inspecting windmills is the primary thing you do.
Yep.
How was that per? Just unpack how much LiDAR data you generate.
Okay. We do a mix of LiDAR and photos, and when the drone lands, we have to collect all that information. When we are operating at full resolution, which is our default, our LiDAR collects at 40 Hertz, 1,000 and something points. So we have to get all that data out of the companion computer and the photos and have them blended together. We get around 400 pictures per wind turbine blades. Each picture at full resolution, 42 megapixels, I believe. It's the camera. We do full resolution, uncompressed, raw pictures, so the entire thing, and that LiDAR data at 40 Hertz. So let's just say we have almost a gigabyte of data per wind turbine blades. And then we have the problem of getting that to a web platform, which is the biggest pain that we have. But
what do you mean by that? Sorry, what do you mean by getting that to a web platform? Oh, look out, here he comes.
Oh,
we best
here comes Bruce.
Stop talking about him. Whatever you do, we've got to stop talking about him now.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's it, yeah. G'day, Bruce. No hat today.
G'day. Yep, it's just calling from the future. It's lovely here today.
Is it? It's before we started, I was going to mention the weather here. So today there is t-shirt weather from Phoenix. Anyway, it is t-shirt weather, and it's been 36 today, and hammering on the roof right now is hail, and it's going to snow tomorrow. So there you go, coming your way soon.
Excellent.
It's a big change.
Yeah, it's very. The weather's weird, and we've been seeing that in your videos actually, Bruce. You've been seeing that you're coping with the winds and all that sort of a thing. And
what wind? What wind?
Yeah, Southern Hemisphere's it's all wrong this year. It's all wrong. Lou is just telling us about the amount of data. We're getting to the amount of data that he. Matthew Gordon on the comments asked, "What's tomorrow's lottery numbers, please?" Yeah, I'm sure he'll. We can make them up right now.
The answer is yes.
Yes. Ah, very good. Very good. Louis was just telling us about just how much data they get from a windmill blade, and I think we've turned into LiDAR data and then a web service for showing it. Is that where you go? What do you mean by a web service?
Because that data by itself, it's worth nothing. So that has to be compiled together and then analyzed either by automatic algorithms or by humans or by a combination of both. So we have to present that data as fast as possible to either to the algorithms that will process that data or to the human persons that have the expertise to see if a crack is a crack, or what is a crack, and what's the deficiency, and what's the importance of a crack on a wind turbine blade, because that is money for the owners of the wind turbine generators. That's the big problem. So you have to get that data on a web platform to expose that to the customers as soon as possible. And it's a lot of data.
And how much is a lot? How much is a lot when you've got a LiDAR swinging?
Oh, we can easily go to more than 1 gigabyte of data.
Is that per blade or
per
the whole
blades?
thing?
Per blades, times 3. So,
and that's exactly what the Vu's company is doing with a platform displaying. Is that right, Vu? Am I getting that right? Am I getting that wrong?
That's right. Yeah, that's something we launched maybe a month or so ago. But it's called LiDAR Mill, and the basic idea is if a company doesn't, instead of investing all this money in post-processing and development, we want to make it easier for people with applications. They can upload their data, their trajectory, their basic files, their LiDAR files, and then get a basic cleaned up file from our LiDAR Mill post-processing platform. So I just checked with one of our engineers, Luis, and you'd be glad to know that it seems like it can handle even files up to 30 gigabytes in size. So it just depends on how much refinement you'll need. And it could be that, hey, it's still in beta right now, so it's totally free till the end of the year. So give it a try. And it might at least get you from point A to point B, and then you can look at it and say, well, we've saved a lot of time in having to refine this much, and we'll just further after that.
Yep. Yeah.
What would I see then? So you'd put in, say you're doing 30 gigs in. So what? So that's me as the inspection drone dude doing that. But then me as the man who owns the windmill, what am I going to see? What value will I have seeing a point cloud?
Sure. Well, it depends on how specific it needs to be. But what this will do is it'll take all that data, the gigs of data that Luis's company is recording. It'll help to align the trajectories. It'll create that point cloud, and you can see with great density, he can look in. Now, I'm not sure if very fine cracks would be detectable, but at least you'll get an idea of the general health of the device. Now, we do infrastructure monitoring, so that's why I'm not sure about wind turbines specifically, but we have a lot of use cases where we have big bridges. We have these drones flying through with our LiDAR systems, and they're just monitoring everything on that bridge. So you can zoom in with the point cloud and get really accurate data.
And then can you pull in the photos as well? The other
Yes,
imagery.
That's right. So like as Luis suggested, we do also the LiDAR plus the photo, and we have really high, like 42 megapixel cameras that we can strap onto our LiDAR systems as well.
Okay, cool. All right, right. Well, now that Bruce is here.
Oh, by the way, it's always the damn Sony cameras, which are a big pain to control.
Matthew Gordon saying SkySpecs claims a set and forget SUS windmill inspection system based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Do you think there can be such a thing as set and forget for windmill inspections, Louis?
Sure, it can. And how do you deal with the legal requirements that every country has?
Oh, sure, but if the bloke stood next to it, then he's the pilot in command, as it were. But what about the actual inspection part of it?
Yeah, the set and forget, yes, it's doable. Our drones do it, but it's always pilot in charge. Set and forget is, yeah, I can use that expression too, but we don't want to, because sometimes things don't go as well, and you have to always have the pilots nearby and in command, because we have a dead man switch on the command, and if the pilot sees something that he doesn't like, he just lets go the switch and takes over. That way we can be friendly with every air administration around the world. That's a very important thing for us.
I think we're only hopping a skip away from real set and forget with drones. But to get to that point, we've actually got to know what a drone is, and we've got to get the measure of things. I'm learning from Mr. Simpson. Now, GPS really, does that really make a drone, Bruce?
Yeah, in terms of the kind of the problem drones that we're looking at, yeah, it does, because it's the thing that gives these things extra capabilities, the kind of capabilities you don't get from a non-GPS equipped machine. And I'm talking about GPS and the C2 link, not necessarily just for telemetry, because it's really the fact that if you buy yourself a store-bought drone with GPS, you don't need any flying skills to actually operate it. You don't need to practice. You can, it is basically a camera that can be positioned in 3 dimensions, and it will come back and land at your feet. That makes it a far more potent tool for misuse for people who are acting. And let's face it, most of the problems we get seem to be caused by ignorance. The people operating these things don't know you're not supposed to be flying on the runway at the local international airport, that sort of thing. So these people have not come up through the regular sort of model flying background where they talk to other people and they fly with friends and things. So they don't have the knowledge necessary to operate safely. And because they don't need to practice, they don't need to talk to others, they are able to do really, really cool things thanks to the technology. And all the real crucial technology is reliant on GPS. You take the GPS out of a Mavic or a Phantom, and it no longer has the ability to act as a easily flown camera that can be positioned and held in 3 dimensions. And that's what most of the problem makers are using these things for. So you classify those as drones, but then your traditional sort of model aircraft doesn't have GPS. So it becomes a completely different thing. It's never been a problem in the past, in the many decades in which we've been flying model aircraft. So, and nothing's really changed there. It's only the arrival of GPS, what do you call it? GPS assisted drones that cause the problem.
I set myself up to argue with you hard, and it's tricky arguing with that. I sort of agree with you, but I think vision-based positioning is coming, and it's coming fast. So I think you're adding the GPS is going to be a valid for a couple of years, but that's a quick dodge. Already yes, I think both the Mavic and the Spark could do the filming of the landing or the takeoff area as they go, and then use that as part of the coming back. And we're only hopping a skip away from that being completely on board.
It doesn't enable them to do return to home, though. You can't return to home using the optical flow sensor. It's only a positioning at the sort of the landing area, and if hovering at a certain altitude, once you get too high, optical flow doesn't work. So it is still, GPS is still the cornerstone of all these autonomous and semi-autonomous craft that are causing the problems.
Not necessarily, Gary. Some of the systems are mostly reliant on vision and vision processing. With the main camera, not only with the optical flow cameras, and the main camera is being actively used on some of those drones. For instance, look at the Spark one that uses the main camera to do some kind of navigation. It doesn't rely on GPS to do everything it does. It uses GPS, yes, but can also use its vision processing.
It does have vision processing, but the thing is, you still can't run a Spark or a Mavic or a DJI without a GPS as a semi-autonomous craft. Those are augmentation to the GPS system to provide things like a better position hold and so forth. But ultimately, these craft we're talking about today, the ones we want to regulate today, the cornerstone of their autonomous and semi-autonomous capabilities is still GPS, and will remain so for quite some years. If that changes, then you review the definitions. But at the moment, we've got a problem right here and now, and we need to define what that problem is right here and now. So I believe that the simplest, remember, we're dealing with regulators. They're not the sharpest knives in the drawer. We've got to make it simple for them. So we say, if it's got a GPS in the C2 link, it's a drone. If it doesn't have a GPS in the C2 link, it's a flying model.
Come on, Bruce. This is a multi-wii with a GPS unit. This wouldn't make a drone on your standards, and could use the GPS to position itself, but it would fail terribly. So I tend to agree with you with the GPS being on a drone is what might start to do what a drone is, it's not the only thing.
It is the easiest thing for regulators to deal with, and we've got to help the regulators here because they're way out of their depth. And at the moment, remember, everything is classified as a drone. If it flies, it's remotely controlled. It's a drone. So if we say craft with a GPS and the C2 link are drones, everything else isn't, we're not disadvantaging drone operators because they're already drones. We're just advantaging the people who are flying radio-controlled flying models.
Yeah.
Do we need to define a drone better, or do we need to define a radio-controlled model better?
I think drones are the problem, so you got to define them.
Okay. Yeah, because model RC planes, RC vehicles are in existence for what, 80, 90 years, and only with the appearance of drones, according to Bruce, is that these issues came up with. So it's a new kind of vehicle that goes in the air, and okay, it will require some specific legislation to deal with it. I think the biggest problem is not the usage of it, is the misuse of drones, and that's something that no regulation will ever be able to fight, the misuse of a drone or an RC plane. I'm sure Bruce remembers the guys that 10 years ago were flying big RC planes, 100 kilometers with big radios, analog radios to do long-range FPV. There's a guy in Spain that did 100 and something kilometers using off-the-shelf and custom-made video emitters and everything custom. So that was already regulated under the RC plan, although what he was doing 100 and something kilometers beyond line of sight is, I'm not sure that that's legal on anywhere in the world under any kind of regulations. So misuse of the technology is a problem. Minimizing that, I believe that the usage of GPS can be a starting point, but can be enhanced, the definition of a drone, but can be a starting point.
And we don't have the sort of sorry, Bruce, after you.
But I was just say, interesting to note that this beyond visual line of sight thing, as Louis points out, it's been going on for a very long time, but none of the incidents that we're seeing reported appear to be related to beyond visual line of sight as such. They're more related to GPS-guided drones. Yes, some people may be flying these drones beyond visual line of sight, but there have been no incidents with model aircraft flying beyond visual line of sight that I know of in the entire history of the hobby. So I think the line of sight, the FPV thing, is a secondary. It's still down to the GPS, because people will happily fly their drone away. They can't see it because they know when they press that button, it's going to come back and land at their feet. That's what gives them the confidence and the ability to do that. So again, it boils down to that GPS thing. And regulators know they can't stop people doing bad things, but they have to be seen to be trying to do something. So my belief is that you cannot solve a problem unless you define the problem accurately. Otherwise, you end up solving something else. And that's what they've done wrong now. They've missed the very first step in controlling a problem, is defining the problem. And that means defining what a drone is. They've just locked everything in. So they've got this very broad spectrum that they're using, this shotgun, and there's far too much collateral damage to the hobby caused by regulators who haven't done the very first step by defining what a drone is.
But sorry, Bruce, they already defined what a drone is. A drone is every vehicle that is used outside the approved RC approved flying fields. So there you have a definition of a drone.
Not necessarily.
Yes,
in some countries, such as New Zealand, it doesn't matter whether you're at a flying field. The same rules apply everywhere. It's like there's no special dispensation for flying at a flying field. In America, you've got this community body which supposedly give you some coverage, and I know that in Europe they're giving you some dispensation to fly in flying fields. But the thing is that they haven't defined what a drone is accurately. They've just said anything that flies and is remotely controlled, which is not a drone.
Yes, anything that can be controlled in 3 axes from the ground and doesn't have a pilot on board and can sustain flight. So that's not a kite, not a balloon, blah blah. So yeah, that's the very broad UAS definition that arrived I think, I want to say in about 2006, I think. And yeah, oh, it's Tom. Oh no, we're in
Oh,
trouble. Tom's here.
oh,
Oh, now we're in
Tom is
trouble.
here, and he's
Oh dear.
on Europe time. So okay,
Yeah, no, I'm in trouble
let's
now.
go away.
Oh yeah, all right. Yeah. What was I going to say? I was going to say. So yes. All right. So let's sort of grudgingly have to agree with Bruce then. All right then. So what about this C2 link then? Because that's the other enabler of this, is the fact that the digital C2 link can allows people to get away with it with our 27 megs or 35 megs or 70 megs old analog radios, as it were. Yes, you could go a long way if you set up huge antennas and stuff like that, but everybody worried about it, and they're particularly unreliable. Modern digital gear is very reliable, and it's allowing range. Should the regulators not be revisiting the transmitters and what they can do? Because that's also enabling it as much as GPS is.
It is enabling it, but it doesn't appear to be part of the problem. I mean, the problem is people flying at airports. They can be standing on the airport boundary and flying their drone over the runway, completely in visual line of sight. The number of instances where it's been proven that people are flying beyond visual line of sight, I don't see them. It's not, the line of sight thing isn't an issue. And model flyers have been flying, as you say, beyond visual line of sight for at least a decade and a half. I mean, there's never been any incidents related to model aircraft. Again, it's not the beyond visual line of sight, it's the drone aspect, and the drone's defined by GPS as I see it. So it's the people with GPS guided multi-rotors, generally store-bought, that are the problem. So why are we even bothering trying to penalize or control an area of activity which has proven historically to be very safe and not a problem?
But Bruce, the issue of not having many people on many incidents on 10, 15 years ago is the law of statistics. There were not many people doing it, and now we have lots of people doing it. So if you get to outside one of those electronics shops, we have Media Market here, or in US, those big chains, and you get outside and see the number of drones that are leaving those shops is completely mind-blowing. If you go to the Chinese sites selling on a promo today, small drones for $10, and although they're small, they can fly very, very far and do flyaways. So it's not easy to regulate. I agree that the GPS is a good starting point, should not be the only characteristic defining a drone.
Actually, I'm glad you raised that issue, Louis, because you're right. There are more drone flights every day than there are manned aircraft flights every day. I think that's been proven by various reports from around the world. There are now more drones than there are manned aircraft in the world. Yet, interestingly enough, we still have deaths attributed to manned aircraft colliding with each other. Just last week in the UK, 4 people died when a helicopter and a manned aircraft collided, right? But there's less of those craft flying than drones. So why is it then that people are saying these drones are dangerous, but they've never injured anyone, yet we've got planes falling out of the sky all over the world on a regular basis where manned aircraft collide with each other? Are we looking at a problem that is way, way out of perspective? Like, the real problem is manned aircraft. It's not drones. They're killing people with these manned aircraft.
Yeah.
After you, Lee.
No, it's also the unfortunate choice of word, because people always associate the word drones to those big US military drones. It's always something bad, having those drones. People, the media, traditional media, pulling up any kind of drone incident as very important, and trying to sell more newspapers or more advertising on TV just because they have a drone is something that it's unfortunate. It's the way we are living these days. Go ahead. Sorry.
Did you hear about the Berkeley Slaughterbots video? Because that's been in the news recently too. Just to that point.
Yeah, that's been all over my Facebook feed, and no end of people have asked me about it. And And I'm going to blame Bruce. He was smiling away there, so he's obviously got a thought about that as well. And just as a point of order, I actually knew one of the guys that died in that midair in the UK. Not very well, but I knew him, met him a couple of times, had a beer with him, Mike Green, the helicopter driver. And yeah, that was a terrible thing. And we had a big bird strike here yesterday. A commercial airliner. It's dented. It's on the front of a 737, but a huge dent in the front of the cowl, getting the word wrong of the engine.
When I saw it, I thought it was some kind of Photoshop artistry.
No, there's another one. There's one in America kicking about, but the one here, it was absolutely real. And I thought what was interesting was they instantly didn't jump to it's a drone. It was a drone. You know, they didn't jump to that, which I thought was interesting. And it's not been huge in the press either. It's been the only reason I've seen it is because of my nerdy aviation chums. I don't think even mine. We've had bigger news in Zimbabwe in Southern Africa the last couple of days. So maybe it's a little bit further down the schedule. It's just sorry, Bruce. Kilobots, over to you.
Oh, yeah, someone sent me that video when it only had about 100,000 views, and I thought, goodness me. Immediately, you and I know that this was just sci-fi. The problem is that it sets this thing going in people's minds, and it's they now believe that a Cheerson CX-10 could hit them in the head and blow their brains out. I mean, it's really seriously. I mean, this may happen, but you're still far more likely to get bowled by a car as you cross a pedestrian crossing. And where's the? I don't know. I guess where's the responsibility from the people that come up with this stuff? Yeah, they've got an agenda to pursue and things, but why aren't people turning around saying, hey, why are you scaremongering? This is ridiculous. You shouldn't be doing this. And again, it all goes right back to what I've said many, many times. As a community, people who fly model aircraft and drones are poorly represented as a group. We're too fractional, we're too disparate. We don't have this unified body we can come back and make an official press statement that the media picks up and counters to this sort of kind of hype that comes out. And I'm just waiting. When's it going to happen? When are we going to get our act together?
Yeah, no, that was particularly terrible. The only thing I really thought interesting about that video is the fact that he flew it upside down, so it'd be that much more efficient. But that was the bit that I really liked the most about that. Tom Pittinger's come to tell me off about things I've done. So g'day, Tom.
Tell you off?
Yeah, you're bound to tell me off for
I'm not going to tell you off.
Yeah, well, all right.
I just came to join the fun.
Oh, okay, good, fair enough. Well, you better go straight away. We don't have fun here, that's for sure. We won't have that sort of attitude around here. Never catch on.
So, Gary, now you have the guy to blame about Autoland. So, pile on him. Yeah, here's your tool, Gary.
Bringing a hammer. Oh, he's going to grab a hammer as well. Just before we go, any other arguments?
Use this.
That's more accommodating. MF Boom's asking just in the comments, what is the best resource for physics aeronautics information on drones? I have a degree in aeronautics, but nothing involving helicopters, etc. So anyone got any good sources for physics and aeronautics of drones?
Well, actually, at least as far as for simulators, I presume that's what they mean.
No, I think it probably means for designing real things, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah, I think there are a few white papers floating around. You have to look around because there are a few good works. Look for works from Paul Risenborough, which is the grandmaster of some of the core parts of ArduPilot and PX4. And there are a few papers floating around. I don't have them by name now, but there are a few good papers, academic papers that can make it easy to get started on this. And
I know that.
And then go to the wiki of ArduPilot, and there are also some resources there that explain how and why some things were implemented.
Yeah, I know that Tridge has been doing a lot of good work on ArduPilot Simulator for creating lots of VTOL, different combinations of aircraft. And so now I just picked up a copy of this, the Real Flight 8. So you can create your own aircraft and put motors where you want and that kind of thing. And it simulates things from the smaller scale, and X-Planes more for bigger scale. It simulates those two realms. So
And iForce 2D has just is you leading me in very nicely into something I wanted to talk about. Just got a call from a neighbouring farmer saying he's hoping to make 100-kilo lift multi-rotor to spread urea. Is this even realistic? I kind of think it's not.
Yeah, it depends on your budget. Of course, it is.
True. Yes, that's true. Yes. Well, that was going to so much misinformation about disk unloading and other theories floating around. Yeah, there's a million theories around. The only way to discount anything, I think, in this game is to try it yourself and see if it works or it doesn't work. That's the only way. You're going to make it
Do
up.
the math, and come to the conclusion of that. It's not that easy. You have MATLAB models that you can persuade to do some kind of calculations, but you can also have MATLAB models. Some core parts of ArduPilot and PX4 were modulated on MATLAB and then transferred to the actual flying codes. So start on MATLAB. That's the starting point.
Oh, that's many pay grades above. I just the hammer. Use your hammer. Bend things. Bend and break things. That's what I do.
that's needle
So
nose, not hammer.
Sorry.
That's a needle nose and pliers.
Yeah. So as for the 100-kilo lifting thing, yeah, I think a couple of people have lifted close on that with multi-rotors, and of course we've got two things. We've got all the flipping taxis. Every other taxi is going to be lifting 100 kilos shortly, and then. But before we get to that, did we all see that the solar-powered? It's going to cross the Atlantic next year. Multi-rotor.
Weren't you saying?
Comments?
Weren't you say you were a balloon pilot, Gary? Right
Yes.
off the top of the program.
Yes.
Perhaps it's a solar balloon.
Well, those do
Aren't those
exist.
called blimps?
No.
We've tried those
no.
before.
Those do exist. Those do exist. You can get that, and you can even get enough bin bags together to make yourself a little hopper, so you can lift yourself. But and it's a French company that sells those. This is getting far too way to my former life.
By the way, Gary, something else. Are balloon pilots real pilots, or they just go with the winds?
Yeah, no, they're victims of circumstance.
They're full of hot air.
Yeah,
I was in a hot air balloon one time, and the pilot was very experienced, and he actually brought us down into this little pond and tapped it and kept going. And the pond was not that big, but he guided us and then tapped it. I was blown away. I didn't know that they could steer them so well.
You better start sailing. You better start sailing, and you'll get some notions of driving with the wind.
Yeah.
Well, you have to look at the ground as every pilot does. You have to look at the ground as if water was flowing through it, and the air will move through the terrain like it's water. And in the morning when it's cold, heavy air will move downhill, and warm air will move uphill. And you just look at the ground and you try and read the ground. And after a while, I mean, if you fly a particular area, God, you don't want to know this. But anyway, after a while,
By the way, or you can use ArduPilot on the gliding modes.
Yes,
because
yes,
we do.
Yes. Yep,
Yeah,
done
there's
that.
a Saurian.
Yeah,
Yes,
Saurian.
is very cool. And as we all know, the only real model aircraft flyers are model glider flyers. All the rest is rubbish, including no.
I would say that's the one thing that I really like about the RC world and drones and whatnot is I like the fixed wing style, because you're having to obey physics and utilize them, conservation of energy and all that. Where multi-rotors, you're just dumping energy into throttle and it just goes somewhere, and you're basically just defying physics at all time essentially.
It's not very elegant, is it? It's definitely.
It doesn't seem very elegant to me. I like the having to obey the rules a little bit.
I think it should probably be law that every RG developer, every developer goes to a free flight meet somewhere and sees the people with their supremely simple model aircraft that are incredibly effective, and then you'll realize just how flipping. Oh, here comes James. God, the whole gang's here now. How's it, James? Hey there.
James.
We were just talking about you, not to you.
Nothing good, I hope.
No, no, of course not. So yeah, if you see, I don't know if you have you ever have seen any of the free flight guys, Tom? But some of the stuff is amazing that they do, and then you'll realize, oh no, we really do. We make a simple thing difficult quite often in this game.
What I would like to see is have an autopilot do dynamic soaring and actually, speed up and do that autonomously. Because they hit some speed limits that just become humans can't fly that, right? And I mean they are, but computers always push that to the limits. And if they were able to autonomously seek somehow and figure out where that thermal's at or where those eddies are at, I think
well, that's almost there's all the guys. Was it Jobby Energy or something that want to put a big kite up and going in? It's not the same as dynamic soaring, but it's still an autonomous kite going round and round and round on a wire, and then the charging happening at the end of that wire.
Yeah, it was a power harvesting, right?
Yeah, but don't you think? Do you think that? Well, it would be interesting that if an autopilot could do that. I wonder if it could. I wonder if it could just yet.
Yeah, I mean, with infinite time, we can do anything.
That's true. Well, I suppose the first thing to do is to get one piggybacking on the back of a really good DS guy and just put it in his model and just record everything, and that would be a good place to start. We should go out and find someone.
What was Luis holding up there?
Hey.
What I was holding? This one.
Was it a believer?
Yeah, it looks.
No.
You gotta rotate it.
That's the Southern Hemisphere model he's got there.
No, yeah, it's for Bruce and I. It's okay for us. It looks perfect.
Oh, sorry, guys.
There you go.
So this is a real plane, a Chuck plane. You just build it and throw it, and learn how to control it from the throw mode.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's definitely the way. Bruce, come on, you must have some opinions about the free flight modelists, or do you hate them? Do you hate them on the airfield?
No. I was an avid free flight modeler when I was young and couldn't afford radio control gear. And I still get a real buzz out of, if you go onto YouTube and look for the BMFA Free Flight Nationals, you'll see some of the funniest stuff you've ever seen. And people complain about the danger of drones. Watch these things, these little free flight airplanes hitting people on the side of the head. There's groups of people everywhere, and these planes just colliding and flying through the airspace, plowing into people. It is absolutely brilliant fun. It looks incredibly dangerous, but no one seems to be worried about that.
Yeah, at Old Warden, if you ever have a chance to go to the UK, go to Old Warden, the Shuttleworth collection. That all the aircraft, they have an original Blériot that flies there. They have an Edwardian night where Edwardian aircraft come out and fly if it's perfectly still. So if you're an aviation geek, it's amazing. And then they have the Mayfly. Yes, it's called the Mayfly. And you're exactly right, Bruce. You go there and you go in the middle, and there's just gentlemen in nice jackets with hats as well, and just shouting things like heads. And they mean it when they say it. They say heads. And runs out the way as this 1.5 cc diesel engine comes rattling out the sky with whatever, and it does rather put all of this into perspective. But here
you go, Gary.
Oh, that's a 0.75, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a glow. Not diesel. Diesel's much better. No, we are rather sort of hammered by our modern take on things, and what's gone before is there's an awful lot of knowledge and expertise. Wonderful plans. There's thousands of plans out there if you want to build something, and Matthew's saying, I'm picturing drones in V formations communicating by honks. Oh, I see. Geese, drone geese. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And then we have what is perhaps the subject of the theme of the week, which is hacking the drones.
It wasn't really hacking the drone, though.
You were on this planet, Tom?
No, it was the database, right?
Not only the database, everything.
Yeah.
And then also the very dodgy ICE report that is or is not from ICE, and it came out on Friday, and there's lots of confusion, isn't there, in the world of DJI at the moment. Kevin has certainly made a name for himself over the last few days.
And rightly so. If they're gonna, now they're saying that they might even charge him or try and bring charges against him when he simply went into their bug bounty program and tried to show them what was wrong with their own program. That the keys were open.
Yeah. It's Smooth Virus. If you want to look at that report's on the site. I put it up last Friday, and DJI responded on Sunday to me about that. It's on the. In fact, let me find the link. I'll find the link and put it in the comments.
You just love the Streisand effect, isn't it wonderful?
Yeah.
Just explain that again. I keep hearing that. What was the Streisand effect again?
The Streisand effect is where someone tries to hush something up because they're embarrassed by it, and in the process of doing so, it creates even more attention. It was originally because Barbara Streisand had some pictures taken of her by some paparazzi that published it in some no-name magazine, and she sued them to have them not published, and then the mainstream media got hold of it and blew it all out of proportion. So whereas initially only a few thousand people had seen her pictures, the whole world saw them. So it's called the Streisand effect.
Yeah, there's actually a good wiki page about it.
She wasn't looking her best at the time.
No, I was going to say very nasty then.
much like DJI now.
I kind of see their points because and it's a company that is dealing with a different culture of what they're used to. That must have played some key factor on the entire process, because the guys in charge from the corporate headquarters are not perhaps used to this kind of process, and the guys in the middle were trying to mediate, and things didn't go well. In the end, Kevin did what he does better, but he was also pushing for the boundaries, and it's all a matter of dealing with large corporations. Some of us that have worked or still work at big corporations know that decisions and these kind of processes are not easy.
And like you said, they're from a different culture, but they do have Brendan Schulman as their head man running around saying you have to sign these non-disclosure agreements.
We saw him trying to be complacent with everything, but we don't know what kind of communication and information he got from headquarters. So it's always a big problem on companies of this size and this big. Not even the fact of DJI being Chinese, or sometimes an American company and you are a subsidiary on another country, and you get the corporate headquarters coming down and cut something that you said or did. It's usual for big companies, and DJI, it's a big company.
Even SUS News was taking some heat for showing both sides of the argument. I noticed on Twitter that Patrick Egan was taking some heat there.
How dare you, Gary?
Yes, how dare I show both sides of the argument. I didn't know. I was a bit lost at that. But I get lost quite quickly, very easily, actually, very easily lost. And I must admit, Twitter is I find it such a divisive place. I don't go there much. I'm afraid of it. I'm not old and I'm bold enough to go to Twitter, really. It's just
young enough.
I would say too old or not old enough.
Too old, maybe. Yeah, maybe too old. But it's just it's so unfriendly. It's so unfriendly. Why go so
maybe Snapchat's what you need. Just do news via Snapchat.
Yeah, no, I am too old for that.
There's a market opportunity. Twitter for the elderly.
Absolutely, yes. I'm sorry. I'm speaking you via the miracle of broil. I'll fill that again. Anyway, it's,
Nothing like news that deletes itself 8 seconds later.
yeah. Well, you got to put both sides of the story if it's presented, and DJI, and then we've also received heat for DJI sent their response to the
ICE memo.
The ICE memo,
Yeah,
and
I
then
saw
people have
that.
been saying, well, that response is fake news because no one else has run it, but they sent it to us first. So they very kindly sent it to us first. That's why we were the only people to have it for about 12 hours. But then that became so it's very hard to know. And also, I'm going to hang on, I've got to climb up on my high horse. But I'd like to think that people that come to SES News can sort the wheat from the chaff for themselves. Take this solar powered quad that's going to cross Atlantic. I am going to put it up. I'm going to put it up. We had this one story a couple of years ago that was like a perpetual motion machine, and people were screaming bile and vile at me, saying, "How can you put that up? How can you believe that?" It's like, come on, we can all read straight through this. If you're coming here, you can. Yeah, I trust you. I trust you, dear reader and dear viewer, to be able to sort the wheat from the chaff. I don't need to be your filter. Anyway,
You need a rating system, Gary, on these stories. You need to have a thing so that people can rate the story as probability of it being true or false or whatever, and then engage them, and so that we can see what other people are thinking.
You're probably right there. I think we did have a little bit of that for a while, but it's very hard to stop those things filling up with spam and all sorts of other nonsense.
Well, just let people give it a number from 1 to 10 in terms of its plausibility.
Well, yes. Well, I should
Ooh,
investigate.
a fake news meter. That's a nice
one. Or, well, in our world, it's mostly BS, isn't it? It's not fake, it's BS.
How dare you use my initials in vain?
There you go.
Then it should be the key KS. So for the Kickstarter news.
Well, it's largely disappeared, isn't it? I mean, this one's popped up today, but really, it's very little Kickstarter news these days. Thank goodness. I suppose. Oh, I've forgotten the name of the thing. What's that thing from Canada? No one's still got that. The Dream QII.
The silly drone.
Yeah, quite possibly. But a lot of people.
You have to be more specific, Bruce, because most of them are silly.
You still haven't seen the
Sounds like
Plexi
silly.
drone.
That's it. The Plexi drone. That's
The Plexi drone.
That's
That's 2 years too late already.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people put a lot of money in that. And it looks, the thing they've got images that they have, it looks very nice. It looks, when they redesigned it the first time around, went from a quad to an X8 and it looked a lot nicer. I just thought, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. All right, if that's what you're going to do. But yeah, it's gone a bit further than that now, hasn't it?
And with the money they
things take
got,
time.
well, geez, how many years? I mean, we watched Phantom 3, 4 Pro. Now what? Wind? What's next? Sky? Before Plexi drone even gets out. Where did the money go?
Yeah.
These backers have to be going nuts.
No, I do feel very sorry for them. I feel very sorry for the people that have put their money in there or anything on Kickstarter, really. or the like. But we have not really followed anything tonight, have we? Did we have anything else to follow? I can't remember. What's the time? 12 minutes ago. Tom, let's talk to you very quickly about Autolands. Getting there a little bit further, we put a LiDAR in the Believer, and that works a lot better, or my chum put a LiDAR in the Believer. But what's the roadmap for Autolands and things like that? I suppose it's what the community really wants. We've got a few of them in the comments. If anyone wants to comment about how you'd like to see your aeroplanes in ArduPilot landing, then now's your chance. We've got the man there. What's the roadmap for landings, other than being on the ground?
Well, I definitely want to fix that one that you had where you land and with a huge crosswind. And that's not something that we emphasize too much with wheeled landings in huge crosswinds and so on. Most of our landings are in dirt or grass kind of thing. So as we scale this up or support something like that, then we'd want to make sure we support wheeled landings well. On takeoff, we do all that, but yeah. So on your video, I was kind of concerned because we'd land and then we were doing the touch and goes, and it would kind of fly off sideways because we don't correct for that. As it touches down, you're supposed to decouple the wheel from the rudder a little bit. So we need to fine tune that a little bit. So there's
that could very well be my not tuning, I suppose. Yes, I guess if I dropped the rudder off a little bit, but that was right at the operating limits of that aircraft. I mean, it was a very extreme example. And also with 3 runways there, your actual the better decision would have been as it's go, or even before it arrived, it would have known the crosswind. It would have gone, yeah, I tell you what, I'm not going to land that way. I'm going to land on the other runway because that's better. That would have been a better decision than if you're single runway, then you've got to take it. But if you've got a multiple landing options, then it'd be good to.
Yeah, so landing's actually a little complex. That a lot of people don't realize the features that ArduPilot offers. There's the do land start. So if you RTL, you can actually jump to a do land start, which is just there's nothing that executes. It's just a marker in the mission. It'll jump you to that point, and then you can do some sort of landing pattern to there, which allows you to have multiple of them in the mission. And then it's just a GPS coordinate of which one's closer at the time. So you can actually have different landing points and then different landing approach patterns for each landing location. So that's been there for a while.
So it'll rally to the closest landing.
Yes, but it's not just a rally point. It's actually a jump. It's kind of like a do jump, but it jumps to that and then continues on. It's sort of it's like a marker.
You jump on one cycle.
Yeah, so it actually jumps to that and then starts executing immediately that next waypoint. So it's just it's a marker in the mission. Is really what it is. Kind of like a do set servo sort of command. It just kind of does it and moves on immediately. Takes a 0 time to execute essentially. But yeah, it allows you to have multiple landing scenarios. On top of that, we're adding do land config, which is something that me, Michael DeBrule we're working on, and that's same sort of thing where it's a do land config where it takes no time to execute. It just kind of configures your landing, and then you can say you describe your landing as opposed to dictating point to point to point. You would just say, here's the middle of the runway, and then pick your landing of your, choose the wind. Constrain it so that here's a runway plus or minus 10, 50, whatever degrees, or aborts allowed, something like that. You can describe what the landing would be, and then it would kind of dynamically generate that to do and execute it. And
then, I don't know if it's your remit, but the text, I think where I was going wrong was not sorting the text out properly, and the total energy control system, I think that stands for, if I remember rightly. And it would be really nice if the text could be brought into an auto tune for numpties like me.
It is, yeah. That's we have an issue. Outstanding issue that I think I created that one, but yeah, just an auto tune for text. Right now, the existing auto tune is purely just the PID, and so a text auto tune. The way that works is just trying to figure out your glide slope of your aircraft. So if you turn off your motor, at how much, what is your slope? How of your aircraft? That describes a lot of how much energy it takes to bring you back up, and all kinds of stuff like that. That's the tuning. So yes,
and when you tune that, I think I read because the ability to read is the other issue that I have. So you have your best rate of climb, which in the case of what I've just been playing with today was 80 knots and whatever, and then you fly that and you note the meters per second going up, and then you fly again and you hold the nose at that attitude with the power off, and then you see what your rate of descent is in the same attitude. Is that right?
I don't recall offhand.
Okay,
that's what you were trying to do.
That's what I did today. That's what I did today, anyway, and it seemed to work.
Yeah. So that's what the manned aircraft does, because humans can't ride the airspeed sensor as well. They have so much going on that they have to just set and forget and still fly the plane and all that. So a computer can feed that back a lot better. So they can say, just be this airspeed, and as you add more flaps, you can adjust that airspeed because you know what the aircraft, and if you know the weight of the aircraft, you can do all that. So you don't need to say, just stick the throttle at 40% or whatever and pitch up, and you should fall.
Yeah.
It should be, well, at this airspeed, I'll just glide down, and you can just land slower, and you can just land, be more appropriate with it.
But give it a few months, Gary, because in a few months, when Tridge finishes up implementing all the 3D aerobatic stuff on Arduplane, you can even do knife edge. So don't worry about that.
Oh,
Yeah, he's been doing the prop hanging.
Yeah,
Doing waypoints with prop hanging. That's always fun.
Well, I've got it going good enough for my boring, dull experiment of the virtual cargo carrying thing, because I really do think that the only thing that makes sense is big aircraft turn into cargo carriers, because it opens up all sorts of other issues as well. You've got to think about.
One thing I want to add too is what is it? A wheels on ground touch sensor input. 'Cause right now that doesn't exist, so that would add that really adds. That's part of the problem where when you land, with the crosswind, when do you switch over? Because that timing is very critical. So that's sort of a requirement to make that work. So that's one nice to have.
Yeah, weight on wheels. Weight on wheels sensor. Go ahead,
Using
Bruce.
ultrasonics for. What about ultrasonics for proximity sensing and altitude sensing?
Yeah. You
sonars.
Yep. So
sonars
there's
are not very reliable, but we have.
You can add to the aircraft, so you
just
actually
like a TPS on cars, a TPS system. It's a pressure system.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what Bruce is saying.
Pressure. Oh, I mean, like on the seat, you mean, or
no, on the tires, or the landing gear.
Oh, right. Yeah. So rangefinder is definitely one way to do it as well.
It's out there, but Gary asked. Blame Gary.
Yeah, blame me. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Just blame me. See, generally it's Bruce, and I'm taking up some of the slack.
Perhaps we can ask Voodoo to develop some very tiny, very small lidars, so that can help us to determine if the plane is really on the floor.
A little bit overkill for an application, but that's a great idea.
Look, let's just hang a micro switch off the bottom of the piece of wire. Come on, let's go simple.
Yeah.
Well,
that's when I have a friend who's blind, that's a balloon pilot. You allowed me to bring this back in, and he used his dog as an altimeter, because when the lead went slack, he was very low. But anyway, moving on. Moving on very swiftly. It's the old skydiving joke, that, isn't it? That's terrible. That's a defensive
So speaking of LiDAR, there actually is one that Profi CNC is working on. That's a optical flow. Actually, it's what it's for, but it comes with the LiDAR that's on the new iPhone, and it's 4 meters or 6 meters range. So it's short range, but it's good for indoor navigation is the idea, but it's really, really small.
Oh, and we do have a question in the comments. Mission Planner Multi-Rotor. Is it possible to define a waypoint, execute 2 or more commands, i.e. loiter time and spline waypoint? I shall leave that to you chaps.
A spline waypoint is a characteristic of the waypoint. And loiter time, I'm not sure, but you can have a waiting time on the waypoints. I don't get the question exactly. It depends on. Okay, commands by itself is not good enough. It depends what are the actions that the user wants the drone to perform. It's easier to do it like this. So don't stick on the message itself. Just go to pretended action. What the action which is required from the multi-rotor. And it's not only Mission Planner. You can go Mission Planner, Q ground control, and it really depends on what is implemented on ArduPilot.
Got to unmute myself. Tom, are you allowed to tell us what you do, or is that not allowed?
I look at Intel drones. That's can't talk too much about it.
Oh, okay. There we are. That's what you do then. Oh, all right.
We make amazing things. We make drones and stuff.
Yeah. I think Yeah. All right.
I do. I just like the picture here in the chat. I'm not sure if you can share that, Gary.
Yeah, I see it.
Are you? I'm not able to put
Okay.
links in the other chat though.
Oh,
You could probably share your screen if you have it open.
Let me do that.
Oh yes, we could do that. Yeah, or you could do that. Yeah.
I can do that. Okay, I'll just go full screen-ish on that.
talking about the optical flow sensor, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of
Yeah.
different things. So here's
There it is.
Yeah.
yeah, there's that.
I love it. That's tiny.
So it's really, really, really small, and it's a UAV can. So I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but the big block on the
Yeah.
bottom right is
The cam.
Is that the camera?
the camera. Yeah, so I think it's actually really low resolution, 64 by 64, something like that. But on the bottom left is the rectangle with the two dots is the LiDAR, and then there's an IMU, and the left is the plug, which is the width of the whole board, and that's UAV can.
That is insanely small.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Just
Man,
explain. Just explain to me how on earth that is that. So the lidar is that little bit at the bottom there.
Yeah. So it was made. I'm not sure who makes it, but it's what's in the new iPhone that just came out.
What's
They have a little LiDAR.
the degree coverage on that? Gotta be like
10
10 degrees.
I don't know. I don't know the
It's
details.
enough to get your whole face, right?
No, so this is just a single point, 1 degree. I think it's one of those things where Apple threw the sensor on and they're hoping someone else will do something with it.
So
it's just a
this isn't
ranging
the one
sensor.
they use for Face
Right.
ID.
It's a range sensor, yeah. So it does give you the distance and it's short range, so it helps with their face thing, yeah.
I see.
But
Well,
it's
So
really
it's,
small.
it's
And-
seeing
and
it
there's
by
a-
camera and then using the LiDAR for distancing, which is
Yes.
excellent. Excellent.
Yes, which is pretty much required for the most part. For there's you can be tricky and not need it, but it really helps if you do have it for optical flow. What's nice too is there's an IMU on here. I'm not sure which of the upper small chips it is. I think it's the top
Wow.
right, but it's a 6-dot, so you get closed loop movement out of it.
Can you get a bigger one for old people like me that can't see that small?
No, just bigger plugs. Same
You-
circuit
you
board,
see-
big plug.
You gotta get glasses, Bruce.
This size is good enough for you, Bruce?
Yeah, I can see that, Louis. Yeah. I don't need glasses. I just make a spectacle of myself if I get glasses.
Yeah, they had that a few other things at Interdrone. Archer Pilot had a booth at Interdrone in Vegas, and we showed off that. That's one of those. The hardware is kind of done, but they're working on the firmware that's on the little ST microchip that's on there. So someone else is
And what
working
sort
on
of
that.
price? So that's fantastic. It's really small and it costs $1 million. What sort of price are we talking about? What sort of money
So
are we looking
I'm
at?
told the target is around 50 US, which is cheap.
$1
That's livable.
gazillion
Reasonable.
But it's one of those things where it's not for sale yet, so it's hard to say. But that's the target price.
And just to be clear, what that'll help you do downward facing is detect the ground and stop you hitting it as hard. Is that where we're going with this?
Well, no. So it's optical flow. So it's for indoor copters.
Navigation. Indoor
Or,
navigation.
Indoor navigation. So you have
A precise
optic-
movement of the drone while you're on a GPS denied environment. So, Bruce, getting back to the start of our conversation, these drones fly without GPS and are drones because they have a LiDAR pointing down and a camera shooting to the ground. So they're drones.
Yeah, but no one cares if they're flying indoors, Louis. They're not a risk then.
Oh.
But don't forget, in India, you still got to call the police.
Yeah. And by the way, you can use optical flow on outside. Not as effective, but you can use it outside. For instance, the LiDARs that view manufacturers are for outside use.
Yeah, so
I
optical
get-
flow sensor is actually a velocity sensor. It's just like your mouse on your computer, where it doesn't tell you where you are on the mouse pad. It just knows that you moved.
That's why you need the distance and the inclination so that you can do the math to know also when you're moving, how much are you moving.
Yeah,
Right.
there's a few tricks you can play to kind of give you some ranging out of it, but it
seems a long time ago, doesn't it, since we all had to punch numbers into an INS at the start of a flight, and all that was measuring was along and across. It wasn't measuring. This is just the same sort of thing, isn't it? It's measuring distance rather than GPS and RAN and all that.
And even for all of us that deal with the LiDAR systems, one of the problems that we have is the attitude problem of the sensor regarding the targets. That's why these kind of sensors also have the accelerometers and all that data, so that we can do a better and accurate reading of the LiDAR data. Have I said something wrong, Vu?
Sounds good to me so far.
Vu is from Phoenix LiDAR System. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm one of the new guys here, guys. Good to meet you all.
And that's a good. Actually, look, we're 6 minutes past the hour already. Did anyone else have anything else that they have seen this week that you would like to rant about?
It's
Not that you could talk about in 6 minutes. That FAA meeting asking city, the one asking local city governments to partake in their regulation making. I can't get my town of 100,000 has idiots on the city council, and you want them. They can't get a WM garbage contract straight, and you want them to tell you about the national airspace. I feel Bruce's pain that's coming to the U.S. now, because if you start letting local governments into this, I mean, you've talked about guys like all of us here for years in this, and they don't know the first thing about what you're talking about.
Yep. I hope that doesn't get much worse than it is right now, because it's. I mean, I think it's going to, and then the FAA needs to really step in for that. And
well, yeah, the FAA needs to be they need to be the arbiter of the airspace. Unfortunately, you've got a race to privatize the bottom 400 feet of your sky there, and not. When I say privatize, I should have used the word monetize, because that's
the same thing with the FCC, right? I mean, you can't do that on a regional basis. It just doesn't. It's silly.
Yeah. Well, it's ridiculous. It's driving, isn't it? You don't drive state lines and go left hand side, right hand side the road, left hand side, right hand side the road.
No, but that's a bad example though, because the in the U.S. each state has their own driving.
No, you're all on the left hand side of the road, but speed limits are different. Side.
Yeah, but it's everyone. All the rules are. I mean, there's some federal rules and there's many state rules.
Okay, that was a bad example. I was unaware of that. I stand corrected.
Well, anyway, you'd have to have so many
different driver's license. You have a different driver's license for every state.
What?
And type of vehicle classification.
Yeah, but the general rules are all the same nationally.
Yeah, so there's general rules, and then there's local and whatnot.
Sure.
But
like a CDL.
Yeah. But it'd be nice to have a nice, a federal driver's license, for example.
Well, and then the other thing that goes hand in hand with this, with the proposal for local regulations for local people, is bringing back the licensing. That's coming back, and it's being brought back via another means that you're not going to have to dodge around using military regulations. That's very dodgy.
Registering?
Registering.
I don't have a problem with registering. I really don't. It's my problem is what they're doing with the information, and that, we had noticed that you had to sign the agreement to get the thing to operate. Nobody read it, and now that's all coming down the line. You're seeing the U.S. Army, you're seeing ICE, all these guys. Yes, so everybody says fly a different aircraft. Okay. But you already spent,
Yeah.
You can't talk about it in 5 minutes.
You're not worried about you're not worried that's coming back. Are you worried about it, Bruce? Let's see if Bruce is worried. Bruce is an arbiter of worry.
As long as they define drone correctly, not a problem. But I don't think they should be registering children's toys in model aircraft.
The key question returns.
Brilliant. Yeah, he's good, eh?
Oh,
It's the only reason we keep him around. It's brilliant. Yeah. No, you're right. Well,
Why would
again,
they want to? Why would they want to register something under 250? What's the point?
what 250 is the new 1 kilo, isn't it? Yeah, technology is gonna
we'll all go to these ones.
yeah,
Whoop, whoop.
yeah, and they'll be in a couple of years' time. They'll be better than the Phantom Ford today. The technology will just work its way back to.
Why?
Back to
Are you saying that the Phantom 4 is good? Come on,
Yeah,
Gary.
they're all
Come
very
on,
good.
Gary. You cannot do auto land on the Phantom 4 like you do on that plane.
No, that's a different kettle of ball games, though, isn't it? It's a very good bit of kit, and you can't
Yes, it
deny
is.
you can't deny
Yeah, it
that
is.
they're
I know.
good.
It's a very, very well integrated product.
Yeah, and it's something. You know, to go back 10 years, just flying a camera before GoPros even. You know, I hope they don't regulate your tiny whoop, says Raven FPV. Well, Raven FPV, if you were in India, they did or will regulate your tiny whoop, very sadly, even indoors in your own home, the privacy of your own home. As Bruce says, you're allowed to make you might not be allowed to make a porn movie there in the privacy of your own home, but you can't fly your own little tiny whoop without informing the police. It's absolutely mad and untenable. Anyway, that's me definitely getting on my high horse, which must be time for me to say, did anyone else see anything else this week?
Yeah,
Yes.
something
Yes,
sad. Go ahead, Bruce. Sorry.
Okay. You had Chad Capper on here a little while ago talking about that bridge dive. Now, one of the guys that did the bridge dive, a guy called Drew, he has a little vlog, and I was watching his vlog the other day, and it was really funny because he went up to Chad Capper's place, and they went to a meeting of a local UAV group, like commercial industrial UAV users, and they were showing videos of them doing bridge inspections. And this guy turns around and says, "Yeah, we do those, but much faster." It was brilliant.
Yes.
Okay.
Louis, what were you going to say?
I'm going to say something which is a sad notice. Someone that had lots of information and had a podcast about drones. A gentleman called Michael Crash Hancock that died end of last month, and it was one of the, for me at least on the drone side, was one of the influences on the small do-it-yourself drones, and it's sad that he's passed away last month. He was one of the great guys that was supporting users at RC groups, not only at RC groups but with this podcast.
Yes, fair play. Yes, indeed, Crash. Indeed.
The ultimate return to home has kicked in.
Yeah, there
that's
you go.
The ultimate.
Vu, have you got anything more jolly after that?
More jolly. There is a video I was talking to you about. This company used a drone to cook Thanksgiving dinner. They pulled the rotors off and put egg beaters on them and all that. Have you guys seen this?
No.
I'll send it to you after the show.
Yes.
Seems like every holiday you got the flying ghosts and the witches and
Yeah.
something.
Well, it's Christmas is coming. It must be time for another Amazon delivery drone video very shortly. Must be coming out very soon. We've celebrated the last 3 Christmases with them, didn't we? Last year was what's his name?
Are they going to deliver Amazon Prime, the voucher? Because drones cannot deliver anything else at the moment. That's like the user that was asking for a drone to 100 kilos.
Yeah. Yes, delivering something or other, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway,
delivering kilos is delivering people.
Yes. Tom, is there news that you've seen this week that you'd like to single out?
You guys have covered most of it. I've been traveling a bit, so I haven't been looking at the news. So I've been missing some. Oh, although there is these slaughter bots.
Yep.
Yeah, no, we briefly mentioned the slaughter bots. Yeah, that
one of these dystopians, right?
Yeah.
done a brilliant job of causing me.
I would say it was a
some
well-produced
emails.
video. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just step in and just said,
Yeah.
Didn't Peter Thiel put money
No.
into that? You know, the big rich guy that what did he do? Something to do with some internet startup, but yeah, he put a lot of money into it, I gather. Don't making that video.
Was it Grok?
That's interesting. That's
Not Grok. It was one of the internet news places.
that's a worry, isn't it? All right, let's call a close. Actually, you've got the hammer. You can put the hammer down on this one.
Okay. Hammer down.
So, gentlemen,
Oh.
thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking the time out to join us. Dear viewers, wherever you are around the world, indeed, thank you as well. Don't forget to join us at 2100 GMT every Tuesday. And of course, the future for Bruce. I am trying to do show and tells on Wednesdays. It's almost working. So if you have anything, you have a company and you want to show and tell something, and give me a shout and we'll have a look at that. Don't expect me not to be ruthless. And we look forward to seeing whatever Bruce has got to show us this week, and everybody else. And with that, I'm rubbish at finishing these things. Rubbish. Thanks very much, guys. I'll see you all again next week. Cheers, eh? Bye.
It's good to meet you all.
Cheers, eh? Bye.
Bye, Wolf. Thanks.
Bye.